Dr. Boma. Okay, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon for those not in Nigeria in other time zones, and also good morning in other time zones. And welcome to the Nationwide Biker Safety Campaign. This is the fifth day that we are having the fifth day session. We've covered gears, we've covered the do-it-yourselves, group rides, solo rides. Now we've covered external aspects. Now we're looking at the internal. We're looking at the mindset. Today we're going to be talking about riding with the right mindset. You know, what is your mental health? How are you feeling? You know, how fatigued are you? Talking about fatigue, talking about, you know, substances. It could be substance use before, during, or after the ride. So we're going to be just looking at internal, yourself. And we have none other than Dr. Boma, aka Han Solo, to cover this for us. He's a medical doctor. Obviously, he's a biker. He's a medical doctor, you know, and also he has a bias for surgery, right? So which means he prefers to open a knife and cut people up and down. Don't mind my naivety. He's also a cancer advocate and the founder of Africa Health Development Initiative. Like I said, he's known as Han Solo in the biking community and enjoys long rides. So he understands what we're talking about when we talk about group rides, and he enjoys solo rides as well. He loves life and also loves nature. He's also part of the being provost, and we are so lucky to have him on board to let us know how we should feel, what we should think about before we get on the bike and while we're riding. So at this point, without further ado, let me hand over to Dr. Boma, aka Han Solo.
Thank you, FO, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to join us this evening. We've had a very interesting week, and we've had some powerful speakers. I'm going to do my best to fill the shoes and talk about what we have today. I will go ahead and share my screen now. Yes. Okay, can you see my screen? Confirm you can, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Today we'll be talking about riding with the right mindset. And we'll touch on mental health, fatigue, substance intake, and a lot of things that we're all very, very, very familiar with. For starters, we will look at some key definitions which will guide us and I think show a very interesting perspective to all this. What exactly is mindset? It's a habitual or characteristic mental attitude. What's happening here? Tamne, are you doing something funny? There's a habitual or characteristic mental attitude which shows that it's something that develops over time from either practice or ritual or repeatedly doing an activity that determines how you will interpret, which is very, very key. So it determines how one perceives what one sees. So like they say, life is perspective. Different people see different things in different ways and then respond to situations. That's the key, that's the definition of mindset. So the key things I read is habitual or characteristic. It develops over time as an individual engages in an activity. It determines how one is going to interpret a situation. The way we interpret situations on our bikes is not the same way people interpret situations in their vehicles. It's not the same way pedestrians interpret situations. And it also depends how we will respond to situations. The situations and the response are unique to bikers because when you're on your bike, it's just you, your bike, and the road. And in all honesty, there's really nothing between you and the road. And the situation changes per second, multiplied by the number of possible incidents around you, plus multiplied by the number of people engaged on the road at that time. So your mind is absorbing situations, even subconsciously, and interpreting and generating responses, which you might not even be aware of. So for that reason, it is key that the mind should be clear to get into that place, because you need that. That's the only thing that's going to see you through that situation. So I like to look at what we call the pre-ride mindset, which is, there are some rituals, there are some cheats, there are ways you prepare yourself, because the mind functions like a well-trained muscle. You train it, it will respond for you as reflex. You don't train it, you'll be stuck looking at possible options, and chance 9 out of 10, you always make the wrong choice. It's a natural law. So first thing first is you must have a clear head. A lot of people practice yoga, practice meditation and all that. It's just so that it gives you control of your mind. Before a ride, it is very important that you assess your mind. Is there an issue that keeps jumping into your mind? You know, we talk about the bike being therapy, but it serves as therapy, but you need to have the right mindset to actually ride the ride before it functions as therapy. So today we've talked about, I think during the week, someone talked about, Madam, don't vex person enter bike. Yes, a lot of us do that. Last night, I saw some breeze coming up. I wanted to go and catch the breeze. I jumped on the bike. It happens. But as long as the mind is already trained, it will protect you during that ride. Is there anything disturbing that you can't get your mind off? If you keep drifting off to things that you cannot sort out, let it go. Chances are, no matter how you think about a situation, it's not going to change anything until you act on it. And if you take that decision, you can now clear up your head and get in there. So we're advised to practice some kind of mind development, yoga, meditation, anything spiritual that one is used to develop the mind and keep it strong. So you can channel your mind in the direction you want it to go when you need to. You need to plan. You know, when you plan, it gives you an idea of what the possible obstacles, possible incidents, and that you could meet along the way. And it is easier to respond to them when you have already anticipated them. So these are things that would have been covered in most of the other, and these ones would have been covered during most of the other talks, but I want to hammer on some things like the route. You must have a mental picture of a route prior to a ride, because it helps you anticipate what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and have an idea of where stops are going to be, because that will help a lot with energy management, which is key. When we get to the end, we understand why I talk about energy management. Because if you're a rider who can do a stretch of 60 kilometers nonstop, and beyond that, you're in trouble, and the next stop is about 80 kilometers ahead, you should know if you can stretch yourself further or not. If you can't, you should prepare for an interval there, because we're going to understand what happens to the body and the mind as we go along rides. Then you should visualize. This is like mini meditation, that's what I call it. Every athlete, every sports person that's successful has always visualized what they want to do before they do it. And the same thing that should be done when we go to ride. What we're doing, because we do it so frequently now, we tend to forget how it was when we started, the fears we had, the dangers we were exposed to. We forget them now that we ride. We've forgotten that there was a time when the bike was going out of control on its own. The fact is we could not control it, but now we can. We think we just take it for granted. You know, there are times when the bike was heavy, but today you lift the bike easily, like there's no problem. You take turns easily. So we should always take time to visualize the ride, visualize and be ready. That helps us to ensure we have a clear mind, because the mind is easily shaken by things if it is not on a strong, solid foundation. There are some pre-ride cheats which I like to do because it helps. Because the two major things that the mind battles with outside on being unsettled by situations and persons, the rest are major issues like hydration and sugar, because the body is 70% water The brain is largely water. For the function of the body to function at 100%, you need to have enough water. I always tell people that when you see someone who's having a hangover, it is the exact same way someone in the desert feels who is dehydrated. The hangover is purely dehydration, and there's an increase in the other breakdown products of alcohol. So hydration prior to a trip will help keep your body and mind in tip-top shape. You can begin hydration as early as the day before a ride, and this is particularly important for long rides so that you don't have a deficit going into the journey. Glucose load is also key. The brain utilizes sugar more than most parts of the body at rest. The only parts of the body that use more sugar than the brain are the muscles when one is working out. Now, the muscles can break down other products. They can send a signal for other products to be broken down to sugar for them to use, but the brain cannot do that. So you need to have adequate glucose. And there's a way to cheat on that before a ride. Have a light carbohydrate meal, preferably the day before, and the morning of the ride. That way you have a good storehouse of readily accessible carbohydrates. So the brain remains constantly fed. Because once the brain begins to search for substrate or what to feed on, things begin to go out of place. I remember when we were doing the TT 2019, and I had on a very horrible jacket that was cooking me inside without my knowledge. On my way into Jos, I had it. And instinctively, all I wanted to do was just open the throttle and get to Jos as fast as possible. But that was my brain. I was already fried, thinking that way. You cannot cut a 60-kilometer journey short because you're going faster. It will still be 60 kilometers. The best thing to do is rehydrate, let the brain reset. Fortunately, before I got into full mad status, I saw a mechanic workshop with a young boy and some people that were packed. Me and I remember his name, Fatihu, I think. We now packed, got water. Half of the water went on my body, the other half went inside. And in another 15 minutes, I was a normal human being again. And I was able to take my time going to this thing. Now, for some people, the switch might not be so fast, so slow. It might be very fast, and you just see somebody pull on his throttle and he's gone. Or totally blank out. You're not seeing anything simply because you're dehydrated or sugar is low and the mind starts wandering on its own. Then aerobic exercise. Now, a lot of people do not realize that riding a motorcycle is actually a sport. Even if you're not competing, it is a sport because it requires coordination. It requires endurance, especially when you're going on long trips. It requires a certain degree of specialization too. And you actually compete with yourself every day. You take a mental stock of your mistakes. You work harder to make improve on them. And someday you might be caught in a position of having to pass knowledge to the next person. So there's internal and external competition. But most importantly, you have to have the mindset of an athlete. To do that, what do? Aerobic exercise, purely to build strength and endurance. Take regular walks. 30 minutes a day is enough for everybody to feel healthy. But if you're planning to be going on long rides, increase it to 1 hour. You find out that when you're on the road, you're less fatigued because the body is already used to being pushed beyond its beyond certain limits. Skipping is there, jogging for those who can jog, running for those who can run, swimming, dancing is even one of them, and then regular aerobics. Do these regularly and you find out you'll be better built to handle stress. Because sometimes you could be on a ride and you meet with a stressful situation, you're stuck for over an hour in very unfavorable conditions. How do you stay focused at such a time? Because you're going to be drained physically. But how do you stay focused to complete the ride? The mind has to be prepared, it has to be sharpened, it has to be tough. and the body too, to be carried along. Now, when it comes to the mindset for rides proper, your head most definitely must be in the right place. I've seen some people who get on their bikes, start the bikes, so move, boom, and they're off. I've seen some people who get on their bikes, put on their helmet, and stay into space for a few minutes before starting the bike. Most of the time, if you have asked, then you are simply putting the head in the right place, clearing the clutter that is there, preparing the mind for the ride ahead. This is particularly important when we have gone for an event, maybe you've gone for a biker's, the carnival or some other event, and we all know how it is at those events. You play hard, party hard, hit other things hard, wake up in the morning, sometimes sleep deprived, powered by coffee and energy drinks, and then sit on the bike, staring lost into space. If you apply a lot of these tricks I've told you about, proper rehydration, get adequate rest, take a glucose meal, even if you sleep for 4 hours, you'll wake up feeling stronger. If you've been doing regular aerobic exercise, your recovery will not be so long. You would wake up, just get 4 or 5 hours rest with proper rehydration. You wake up, your head is clear. If you've been hitting that body hard, it will recover fast. So those are the key things. The head must be in the right place when you sit on that bike, and visualize, focus on it, or whatever thoughts you have, they're not going to leave your mind. But the truth is, your mind has to focus on the journey ahead. So you have to get everything out, focus on what needs to be done. Use that a few seconds to straighten yourself out before turning that key or pressing that button. Again, the best place to finally visualize is when seated on the bike. Now, it's important, different kinds of rides. If it's a solo ride, you see where you're going. If it's a group ride, after the brief, there's going to be an initial confusion when people start taking off, because nobody's going to say, you move first, you move second, you move third, you move fourth. Everybody's going to move out. And then you're going to find yourself somewhere in between. And when it comes to that point, you're going to have to pick your key points, log them into your head. This is the person in front, that's my focus in front, this is my focus behind, this is my focus by the side. And understand the reading, know your place in that reading. And once you lock it in, the mind takes note of it. It's like when you're in a car, you know how big your car is. If you drive a brand new car that's not yours, once you get into that vehicle and spin it around a bit, you have a fair idea of the dimensions. You don't need to go out and measure, say this 4 feet, this 3 feet. No, you have a mental idea. And that's exactly what happens once you pick your coordinates in the middle of a group ride. Pick that, it logs into the brain. And at any time that there's a shift in those, your body reacts without your knowledge, but only if you have been doing it regularly over time. That's why you have that habitual characteristic thing. So if you make a mental note to do that, it might seem difficult at first, but it becomes reflex as it goes on. Observe. You must observe. It's what everybody does as a rider. The brain is trained to observe. Hazard perception is increased amongst bikers. Even when you drive a vehicle, it follows you into the vehicle world. Even when you're taking a walk, it follows you. Like my son says, I see the future. Simply because I tell him, don't stop, move out there. This will probably happen. And when he doesn't listen, it happens. And he asks me, how did I see the future? It's just hazard perception. The bike, because your life is at risk, only makes you more aware of these things. And we actually carry them into our regular life. So once you hit the bike, bam, you've picked out your points. Your mind has registered what it has as the benchmarks for tolerance or the perception of danger. And listen to those things that come to your head. You have to trust your instincts. Once you have logged in those parameters, trust your instincts. If a child is falling, it reaches out unconsciously to protect itself when it's landing. Even a human adult, if it's blindfolded and thrown out, subconsciously is reaching out to protect itself. Trust your instincts. Once you have logged in, your mind wants to protect you more than you want to protect yourself. So if you feel like you need, like maybe you saw a brake light come on, the natural instinct is for you to hit on your own brakes. Then you now feel, no need, let me go on. Trust your instincts. When you've done what you feel like doing, assess the situation again. Remember, the situations are changing per second. Your mind is working faster than you're even thinking. You're moving at 150, 160. The people around you are moving around at similar speeds. How fast do you think the mind is working? So you should be able to learn to receive those signals as they come in and act on them. And it will help save the situation if need be. Then your fluids and energy packs, very, very, very important. The brain works with fluid and sugar. You must have these things. It's not enough to meditate, do all the exercise in the world, be as fit as a fiddle, and then now starve the brain, which is the nerve center for everything. The mind, everything emanates from there. So you cannot starve it. Make sure you have enough. Some people are in the habit of taking water when they start the ride, simply because they don't want to have to stop soon. It's wise because we lose a lot of fluid going out there. And that's when you begin to see those sharp decisions. Somebody breaks right in front of you. You see it, but you cannot respond, or you do not respond. And when they ask you what happened, you cook up something sharp and nice, you know? And those things happen when the mind is not in the right, when the head is not in the right place. So all the things I've talked about, one of these things would have led to it. One, but the bottom line, the fundamental is hydration, fluids, and sugar. Now, these two challenges which we experience on rides are the cause of majority of the mind issues that we've been talking about the mindset. Once you get on the bike, you will be dehydrated because you're doing some form of exercise and you are heavily clothed. So half of this sweat is going to be evaporated. So you might not even notice that you're losing it till it is too late. The second thing is you're burning sugar. You're eating up your reserves. So your sugar level will be going down, and it depends on how fast your body replaces that. Then if you have additional mental health challenges like yeah, madam are not, or Oga are not on the same page, you're owing the world, police are looking for you for those reasons, your landlord wants to kick you out. Truth is, there's nothing you can do about those things at that moment. That's why it got to the stage where it is. So if you choose to go and ride, get them out of your head, because the more you keep dwelling on them, the less you focus on what's important, and the more chances you're going to put yourself and other people in trouble. When these things begin to happen, is where we begin to see the first thing that we talk about, fatigue. I remember coming from Owerri once, one of my early rides with my club, Hard Riders. There was a man with us. He was not coordinating right that day. We had had 2 or 3 stops because the bike kept going off. I think he had pump issues also. I can't really remember what happened. By the 3rd time or 4th time it happened, everybody was frustrated. And we had partied hard the night before. So the fatigue has started setting in. So someone went to lie down in the filling station under the shade and slept off. Then whenever we're ready, you guys wake me up. Others were trying to look for comfortable positions. And eventually...
okay, good evening.
Eventually, someone is in the background, please. Eventually, when we're about to kick off, they had started his bike. Someone had fixed it. Said, okay, get on the bike. This guy could not lift his leg over his bike. He tried the first time, he failed. Tried the second time, he failed. The 3rd time, he kicked the bike over. He was fatigued. He was drained. The brain was sending signals, but the body was saying, okay, I don't know if you do this one. I don't die. It happens. That's when you have severe fatigue. Eventually, we had to truck the bike. When you have fatigue, concentration reduces, focus also reduces, because you need energy to do these things. And this is when we have problems. Once you have reduced concentration or focus, that is where we have problems. And now it is much worse when somebody is fine and well, but his head is not in the right place and starts a ride with already reduced concentration and focus. And thirdly, very poor decision-making. The mind is naturally lazy. It does not want to do anything that hurts or causes pain. So it wants to take the easiest way out. And the easiest way not to be on a ride is to stop a ride. So the mind is going to find a way to stop that ride, and it will force your muscles to act in that direction. Now, all these situations are natural that occur without substance use or anything. If you take any substance, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, and a few other hard drugs, they cause these things listed without you doing anything. They cause dehydration. You are taking a lot of alcohol, you're pissing, it's a diuretic, you're pissing out all the water in your body, and you're going to wake up with a hangover. You are puffing on cigarettes or something else, same thing, it's also going to give you some dehydration. Caffeine, same effect, and a good number of substances that are taken. So these substances lead to this list of things that I've pointed out here: dehydration, low sugar, and this chain: fatigue, poor concentration, and poor decision making. So that's the effect of taking those substances and not recovering before going on a ride. So you've already placed yourself and others in a disadvantaged position. On the other hand, there are some substances which give the opposite effect of the low sugar. They pump the body with energy, sugar, adrenaline, and make the body hyperactive. It is also a problem. And that one is worse so because when the effect wears off, it would have eaten up all the reserves, and it is a straight plunge into the low sugar and dehydration zone and straight into trouble. We do these things a lot. You know, bikers have this reputation of supposed to be badass, tough guys. And it's kind of cool because people don't want to mess with you. But the truth is, we know our bodies. We know when our bodies are telling us we have gone too far. Whenever you feel this way, don't take that risk. Don't. You're not proving anything to anybody. Yeah, for you to be on a bike and surviving, you have proven enough to everybody. So there's no point to go any further. Now, it's a Friday. We're not going to take too much of our time. So in summary, what I'm going to say is no matter whatever your reason for riding, for sport, for pleasure, for posing, for getaway, the main aim of your riding is to arrive at whatever destination you have chosen safely. You must visualize that before you even start. And ultimately, we are to return in one piece to our loved ones. So when you step on that bike, clear your head and have this as a mantra. I'm going here, I'm getting there safely, and I'm coming back to meet my people. I have conversations with my bike. Sometimes she bribes me, tells me she needs a paint job when she doesn't, just a makeover. We have that discussion. And I tell her, get me to where I'm going, bring me back. When I come back, I'll sort you out. And so far it has worked. I don't know if she really hears me, but it has worked so far. So we have that kind of bond. And then rubber side down always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boma, aka Han Solo. That was quite insightful. You mentioned the pre-ride mindset, having a clear head. I think that's very, very key. You also mentioned some of the pre-ride cheats, which is hydration, glucose load, aerobic exercise prior to the ride. Just get your body stable and all. And of course, the right mindset, which is having your head in the right place, visualizing, talking to your bike, Observe. I like that word you use, the phrase you use, hazard perception, just being focused on, okay, I know a lot of us do it, but we've probably not coined it in that way, where you look at that car and you say, that car is going to do something stupid, or that dog is going to cross the road. So that's hazard perception, and I think it's very key. And when you are distracted, you will reduce your focus on those hazard perceptions, which I think is a big takeaway for me. So we're going to go into the questions. We're first of all going to address some of the questions in the chat. One from Costco, or Costco, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Said, is it advisable to take energy drinks during ride? Let me add a little bit. Energy drinks plus alabukun and cocoa. I know a lot of bikers. I always have alabukun, let me confess. So long distance, I put alabukun in my bag. Right. So is it advisable to take energy drinks during rides?
Now the energy drink part is it's interesting because I initially used to be against those, but when I started riding long distances, I found out I needed those things, and they helped a lot. I put them in there, chill them, have them at me as I'm going. But the truth is, because at that time you're in high performance mode. You're in high performance mode then, so it will be utilized for its purpose. I think that's what it's designed for. The alabukun and things are basically painkillers, and they give us a cheat. Many of us are not exactly young anymore, so by the time we go on a ride, you're going to end up with some kind of pains and all that. So you take that, so that during that period you can function. But once you're done with the ride, get some good rest so that the body recovers on its own. Thank you. I hope I've been able to answer those questions properly with that.
Oh yes, at least for me. Thank you. It means that the alabuku, which means it's still staying in my bag.
That cheat mode be that.
Yes, so my cheat mode. Okay, so Chinedu asks, let's talk about antihistamine medications before ride. What do you have to say about antihistamine medications before ride?
Well, antihistamines are for allergies, basically, and other things. What they do is that they reduce the body's natural response to some things. For some people, if they're taking a centrally acting antihistamine, it would also make them drowsy. It's one of the side effects listed. So if you take it, you notice on the pack, it tells do not operate heavy machinery and all that. It is key. If you're taking one, if one is taking an antihistamine that's centrally acting, please, it is not advised that one should take go on a ride, because by the time you're drained, that the drowsiness would be multiplied. It's similar to taking a muscle relaxant. A muscle relaxant can be taken after a ride to help the body recover, taken, but not close to a ride, because the muscles become kind of flabby in that relaxation mode. Similar effect with the antihistamines. So antihistamines are not advisable. Different people have different levels of tolerance. And if one is on routine medication such as that for a medical condition, and you're a rider, you should actually discuss with your doctor so they can give you one that is not centrally acting, that will still give you the protection you need while not endangering your life altogether.
Okay, thank you. We'll take Terminal will come on there. We have one question from Kidado. So Terminal raises his hand. So can you please unmute yourself and ask a question?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just quickly, I have two questions. So first, if mentally I feel I can manage a speed of 200 kilometers per hour, or let's say 180 kilometers per hour on the average in a trip, let's say an interstate trip, or let's say an interstate trip in Nigeria, so we can break some of these speed limit rules. Does that make it right, really? because some persons actually can ride that fast, especially on a stretch of road, no traffic, nothing, and that's their average speed for most of the journey. Does that really make it right? Because mentally I can't. And if the answer is a no, what really is the best speed limit? Because I know very well on our highways, our speed limits officially is about 100, 120. Officially, if the rules were to be maintained, nobody goes above that speed limit. But unfortunately, nobody checks your speed in our highways. So that's the first one. Number two, in terms of alcohol and its effects on the brain and all that, as bikers, it is a safety theoretical statement that is not right under the influence of alcohol. But yet, it is common knowledge that alcohol is central in our riding. So we're going out, going out for an occasion, we're coming back that same day, maybe to
Off your
a
mic,
state
off
close
your
one.
mic.
No, this one I will talk and well. Because whether I like it or not, I have lost somebody. And so this, I think we must speak. So what are we saying as BIN? Those are my two questions. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, mentally being able to do 200 kilometers an hour, in my opinion, does not mean that you can do 200 minutes, because mentally I see myself sometimes as a 10-foot tall guy. But when I now see somebody who's 7 feet, I realize that I'm not even 6 feet. So being able to do it mentally does not translate to doing it on the road. Now, you mentioned speed limits. Majority of the people in this country don't know that there are actually speed limits. And like all our laws in this country, enforcement is the problem. If someone can, I'm not saying not mentally, someone has trained himself to the point where he can ride that fast, there's a racetrack, you can go there and do it. If you have an empty road and you assess it to be safe, like a long stretch, like what we have up north, do it, but also realize that it's not a racetrack. A racetrack is well maintained. A racetrack does not have an animal running across. A racetrack does not have, it's cleaned every now and then. It's in top condition for people to do those high performance things. We do it, yes, but in all honesty, it's not right. It's not right, because anything can happen. And most times when one little thing happens, everybody gets into trouble. The alcohol aspect, I've pointed out, it's a no-no by the time you push it too far. You're going to wake up groggy if you don't get enough sleep, or even if you rehydrate enough, depending on what you take. But it's something that has come to stay, and we make statements every day. I remember sometimes even at club levels, someone has had a bit too much to drink. You want to take his key, it becomes a bit of a challenge. It becomes a bit of a challenge. It's as much as we know the effects and people are still doing it. Well, adults, and I think being the president is here, he's listening in, he will take what you have said and consider moving it further. But I know at the club levels, these things are managed, and we all have the right laws that say it's a no-no, and we have ways of checking ourselves. But actual implementation is a bit of a challenge. But I think the being president is here, and he would take it up and probably give you a call later. So we'll see if it's something that can be pushed further.
Yeah, just to support that, yeah, jokes apart on the off your mic, but it is something that is really critical, and I'm glad you mentioned the clubs. I think the clubs need to play more role in enforcing drinking while riding. I know very well Ride Easy does that, a couple of other clubs, MTAG do that, where if you're going to be riding, you have no choice. Whether you're a big man or not, they're going to seize your keys. If you're going to be drinking, they're going to seize your keys, right? So while we employ individuals to be responsible, we also play with the clubs that they should actually try and enforce it within there, make it like one of their taboos, right? That will also help in reducing the incident rate on drinking and riding. Right. So to go on, Gidado asked a question on soft drinks. Is it safe to be taking soft drinks in rides to replace the fluids and the energy lost?
Well, the best thing to replace fluids with is water, or they have these elemental drinks that are available in most gyms. The Lucozade Sport, which has all the essential vitamins, minerals that are needed during sports. That's the best thing to replace with, because the soft drinks contain more sugar and it will actually end up dehydrating you. While it gives you sugar, it will end up dehydrating you. So some shortcuts for sugar and energy bar. You can't get a pure energy bar, a bar of chocolate or two, while you have water proper. Sprite is relatively somewhere in between sugary and watery at the same time, so it's not so concentrated, but Sprite with water is closer to the Lucozade Sport I talked about. Sprite with water is closer to that. So, but most other soft drinks are more sugar or sweetened based and would end up rehydrating you while while you're trying to rehydrate yourself.
Okay, thank you. Our very own Joanne asks, what can one take to prevent leg cramps during ride, especially for a long distance?
Leg cramps, number one, are usually caused by dehydration. First sign, early sign of dehydration, and then secondly, riding position. Cramps, dehydration plus riding position. I remember I headed to Obudu. I got to Obudu, what I thought was Obudu. I didn't realize it was just the junction leading to Obudu. And I was drained. I stayed at that filling station and lay down on the floor, drank lots of water, then baptized myself inside my cooking jacket at that time with water, and I started the ride. About a few kilometers into the ride, I started feeling cramps, and I knew that something was wrong. The position was wrong. I was dehydrated again because I was being cooked by my jacket. So I took a break, topped up with some more water, I got on. So two of them helped. But because I was drained, I kept being in that wrong position, which was upsetting blood flow and cramping some muscles naturally. So it's a combination of those things, dehydration and sitting position, riding position. Those two things cause the cramps and can be avoided with regular hydration, good fitness, good posture, aerobics, and the rest.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
We're talking about, being mental focus and all. How we've had group rides where, like you mentioned, someone's bike has this issue and everybody's already getting frustrated and How do you mentally change the narrative? You've already hydrated yourself. You still have some energy. How do you remove and eliminate all those distractions and the disappointments of the delayed border crossing, late mechanical issues? Try and get your mind back into the game. Is there a cheat for that?
Unfortunately, there's no cheat. The only cheat is if I promise you $1 million if you get to your destination. There's no other.
That one is good enough.
But you see, the pre-ride routines that you develop help, where you either meditate, do mind focus games. All those things help you as an individual generally. And even when you find yourself in different situations, the mind is a muscle. If a muscle is not trained, it cannot be controlled, it cannot be used effectively. So the more you meditate, develop your mind, read, there are many mind games available. Learn to focus, learn to concentrate, empty your mind, focus on an issue, shift to different issues. If you do that, it will be very easy for you to, all right, guys, we're in a bad situation here, fine. What's the situation? You arrive at a decision quickly. Rather than what really wastes time is the first 10, 15 minutes where everybody has a solution. You know, everybody has a solution. Ah, this happened to me in 2020. This one in 1905, like this. Oh, I know about this. The first 10, 15 minutes I spent doing that. Then eventually people tire out and take the back seat. Then the guy who has the know-how begins to make some headway. With a clear mind, you take charge, you look at the situation and assess it as fast as possible and arrive at a solution. It's something that can be fixed now. Yes. Boom, who's going to handle it? Get in there. Okay, then once you are done with that, get back on your bike, focus on the road. It's easy when the mind is trained. If it is not trained, when this person has tried, hey, is it about to work? It doesn't work. Ah, disappointment again. Then disappointment again, because the mind is not trained. But you have to have that training prior. It's not going to be magic when you meet that situation. It's not magic. You have to build it the same way you build physical muscles. So no hack there.
Okay, thank you. So more like just ensure that you keep practicing the mind narrative,
Yes.
controlling your mind, I think that's a good one. Arnold has a question, and what's your take on people who take non-steroidal painkillers? Okay, we've spoken about Alabukun. Tramadol, when they write.
Tramadol is going higher.
Big Arnold.
Tramadol is in a class of its own. It's really no longer just a painkiller. Tramadol is banned. It's not over the counter. It has to be recommended. And I think if it's recommended for one to take Tramadol, one should not be on the ride.
Yeah, I think he just put that as part of the examples of the non. No.
It's not for use, I beg.
But the question also for non-steroidal painkillers.
Non-steroidal, we call them NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They can be used. They're not going to cause anything. They will just relieve you of pain. But like I pointed out, just after the ride, you can do it before. But don't make it a habit, because these are the things that are leading to kidney problems. People have abused them so much that kidneys are beginning to fail at a rate. So take only when necessary. And there's a fine line between when necessary and addiction. You take today, take tomorrow, take the next day. The next day you have one small pain. You cannot enjoy it. You go and pop again. None of us wake up 100%. You don't wake up 100% and boom, go. We're getting older. When you wake up, one part of the body will drag behind you. Today might be the right leg, tomorrow might be the left knee, tomorrow it might be the waist, might be the back, might be the neck. But as the day goes on, all those things clear out. So you don't have to pop. Because at the end of the day, you are damaging the kidneys. But if it's after a ride, you can take it. So you sleep well, wake up the next day, continue life.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Mr. OC. What's your advice to riders who don't know the proper use of sirens and when to and when not to use?
The siren is part of the guy now. It's part of the guy, that the packaging. I've been looking for siren myself. I'll be honest with you. I've been looking for siren. So I don't want to disturb some people and make some noise. But as much as we do that, I think there are rules and etiquettes to using a siren. In a group ride, it helps draw attention and keeps the riders safe. If you're just going around your neighborhood on your own with your siren, either you're making a nuisance or you're doing guy and people are appreciating you. So I'm not really an expert in the siren matter. Me, I enjoy the thing. I like the ganga that comes with it. And we may need an expert to talk on that at another day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Osi, is that the same question? Because I see your hand is still up.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Doctor. Good evening, FO.
Good evening.
Yeah, I deliberately asked the question because I sometimes get to go save some riders. I'm a cop. I use a BMW Arrow 1250 RT that has siren, and I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to use a siren. We have rules where we use siren, different types of siren, and when to use, when not to use. But our guys, as you've said, is part of the FEC. It adds more beauty and it clears way for us when we are in tight corners. But sometimes we seem not to know when to use it and when not to. You're approaching a checkpoint and you're using a siren. Whoever is on that checkpoint is at alert, expecting to see a VIP or a service chief compass, and all of a sudden sees so many dudes on metallic horse passing.
Okada riders.
It gets them very pissed off. Sometimes when they see that, they get very pissed off and end up, if you're coming back, they'll stop to find out why they're blowing up siren. I wish we could educate more of our people to understand when you approach a security post or a checkpoint, when to use and when not to use. Your type of siren, you are in a checkpoint or you are approaching a go slow, you use the yelling siren. You are approaching a stop sign, you use your horn. Not you are on a traffic stop and you're using a yelling siren, attracting the whole eyes on you. And most of there are places we are not supposed to blow sirens. You're entering a residential area, your siren is even louder than when you were on the major road. You're approaching a hospital, a military base, a school, and so on. So we should educate our people more on that, so we don't.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Again, this part of the whole safety things. The perception, the negative perception that a biker may create to road users may be transferred to other bikers. So let's all try and be responsible for each other and be each other's backup on that. We're almost out of time, but I will take one final question. What's your take to people who think riding is a solution to mental health disorders, to those who feel it's a therapy?
Well, it's said that wind is therapy and is free. That's why we ride. But anyone who's diagnosed with a mental health disorder, there's the behavioral aspect of treatment. There's the medical part for those that would respond to medical treatment. And I know part of the behavioral aspect is people are encouraged to engage in activities that would help them interact with people, develop social skills, so to speak, engage normally. But if one were to choose riding as part of it, it's a part of the treatment of the mental health disorder, not treatment on its own. So if a mental health disorder has been identified, treatment should begin. If part of the behavioral therapy is engaging in an activity and the person discusses with his or her psychiatrist and says, I want to ride a motorcycle, the psychiatrist will first check, is this guy stable enough to actually get on a motorcycle? Let him go and ride off the bridge or something, or want to attempt to fly over a flyover that is incomplete, or those kind of things. So it's not a one-stop shop where riding solves mental health disorders. There's a lot to it before we start to look at that angle. So I'm not in agreement with that. That thinking is wrong, that it's a solution to a mental health disorder. That thinking is very, very wrong. I won't encourage it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Boma. I think we've answered all the questions. Let's see, do we have, okay, what are the downsides of downside medically of wearing helmet, which isn't your actual size?
That one is clear.
My headache now.
Once you're not comfortable in any way, you're going to be distracted. Too tight, you get a headache. Too big, it's going to be dangling about. And you're not going to be able to focus on what you're doing. That's why when we talked about gear, I think that was covered. But it's not more than that. Yeah, how fast do I ride? I don't know.
Confess.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Okay, I think we have exhausted all the questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Boma. We've spoken about the pre-ride mindset. You know, just as you do your PIKE check, you do your mental state check as well. You gave us some cheats, pre-ride cheats, hydration, glucose load, getting, being stable, having enough exercise. Then we spoke about the right mindsets, put your head in the right place, visualization, have that hazard perception, trust your instincts, and then fluid and energy intake, right? So thank you very much for that. This session also continues again tomorrow. We have first aid for motorcyclists. So we'll enjoy everybody to please be here same time tomorrow as well for this session. It's been very informative, at least for me. I've taken a lot from each of those sessions, and I'm sure that for club executives that are here, please take some of those sessions, some of the learnings from this session, and push it into your members, because that is really how we can incorporate this into part of the lifestyle of the clubs and the members as well. So because I know before this, someone that said, oh, all these sessions, all these safety sessions, still after this, they will go and do what they want to do. but it now beholds on the clubs and the executives and let's be each other's keeper, right? Let's take some of these sessions, even if it's 2 or 3 that we take out of all the sessions and imbibe it into our culture. It becomes a habit, like Dr. Boma mentioned. It becomes part of us. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy your Friday. We're giving you back the rest of the night. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Enjoy
Efo.
yourself.
Thank you, Efo. Thank you.
Thank
Han
you.
Solo.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It was a great one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. See you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Enjoy your weekend.
You too, bro.